These fragments taken from our fallen will live on in our initiates. Everything that is flesh perishes, yet we will survive in the blood that flows through those that come after.
If you wished induction into the priesthood, why did you not pursue it? Surely High Priest Corbulo would have welcomed.
We do not choose our duty. Only honor in its fulfillment.
The vaunted Blood Angels are amongst the most noble of all the Legiones Astartes. Yet within their storied bloodline, the curse of their Primarch lies dormant. Eschewing their honor for boundless fury, every Astartes of the Ninth must wrestle control over their inner demons. For the discipline of the Angels of Death is paramount to their survival, lest they descend into madness and bloodlust. And so today, we shall elucidate the dignified sergeant of the Sword of Baal, Ancaeus. As a senior officer of the remnants of the Blood Angels of the Sword of Baal, Ancaeus would earn the respect from his battle brothers through trial by fire. Mentored closely by his captain, Orfeo, Ancaeus would shed a ray of pious optimism upon his kin even in their darkest of days. Considered as a novitiate of the sanguinary priesthood, Ancaeus' will to preserve his fallen battle brother's gene-seed lineage would cast him as a protective soul. Though not inducted as an apothecary of his chapter, Ancaeus would nonetheless bear the sigil of their office with pride upon his helmet. Overbearing in his duty to preserve his chapter's legacy, when stationed aboard the Sword of Baal, Ancaeus would oversee the vast gene-seed store of the ship. Placing his duty to his fallen brother's legacy above all, Ancaeus would continually disaccord with his fellow sergeant Kazarion on the objectives incumbent of their chapter. An especially gifted swordsman, Ancaeus would command his men with stoic leadership and admirable example. A self-reflective and compassionate warrior, Ancaeus would see to the emotional stability of his battle brothers, yet continue to be estranged by his once close brother, Kazarion. A bond which would be strained to the point of breaking during their darkest hour on the world of Naiades. The Blood Angels of the Sword of Baal would be whittled away prior to their arrival to the cursed Naiades hive. With all other command staff slain, and their returned brother Kazarion from the Death Watch, Ancaeus would be the only soul fit to take the place of command in Orfeo's stead. With their arrival to the planet of Naiades, Captain Orfeo would lead his honor guard to investigate the distress signal from the planet. As hours passed with no word from the captain, Kazarion and Ancaeus would argue as to their duty to the chapter. Pitting the survival of his fallen brother's gene stores against the fate of their missing captain, such debate would be halted with the distress signal of Orfeo breaking through the interference enveloping the planet. Commanding the Angels of Death to assault the city via drop pod deployment, Ancaeus and Kazarion would convene their squads upon the city of Naiades to face the Gene Stealer cult. Purging the heretics from the city, the Astartes would come to find the ruin of Orfeo's Thunderhawk gunship and honor guard. As the Astartes delved further into tunnels of the city, Ancaeus and Kazarion's bond of brotherhood would be further strained. Despite Kazarion's bleak assessment of the fate of their captain, Ancaeus would nonetheless maintain the cohesion of the Angels of Death. Discovering the severed hand of their captain and his power sword amongst the corpses of the fallen Xenos, Ancaeus would carry his captain's sword as a talisman of hope. Resolving to return the blade to his astray leader, Ancaeus would never falter in his faith in his captain's survival. Yet with their descent further into the bowels of the city, the Astartes of Sanguinius would be ambushed by the Tyranids. Facing their foe with great ferocity, the Blood Angels would slay great swathes of the heretics within the tunnels. However, several Astartes would be slain by the enormous mutants rampaging through their lines. With the fall of their chaplain, Raphael, and Sergeant Kazarion's sanity breaking, it would fall to Ancaeus to bind the morale and fighting spirit of his men. Commanding the Astartes to fend off the heretics, Ancaeus would endeavor to protect Kazarion. Despite their shared rank as fellow sergeants, Ancaeus would bear the burden of de facto leadership of the remnant Angels of Death. Salvaging Kazarion's fractured mental well-being and shepherding him through the coming darkness, Kazarion would stand ready with his stalwart and most trusted brother once more. Side by side, they would submit to their fate, to die as noble warriors. Yet with the intervention of Dominus Magos, Castia Theta 9, the surviving Angels of Death would survive their ambush. Following the Tech Adept servitors to the base of the Tower of Naiades, Ancaeus would lead his battle-wearied men to their destination. For soon, Ancaeus would relinquish his custodianship of Orfeo's power sword, with the reunion of him and his men with their patrician captain. For soon, he would embark upon his final battle to end the Xenos menace. Joining his battle-scarred captain and battle brothers in their final assault of the domain of the Tyrannid Patriarch, Ancaeus would fight with finesse and deadly efficiency. Alongside his brothers Orfeo, Kazarion, Tiro, Sangreal, Melchior, Armino, and Palladus, the Astartes would make their stand at the gate of the Tyrannid menace. Breaching the chamber of the foul Xenos, Ancaeus would pursue the fleeing Genestealer witch. Confronting the malevolent heretic, Ancaeus would cast her from the peak of the tower, bestowing the Emperor's judgment and proving worthy of his rank. Yet upon returning to the chamber where his brothers had stood against the Patriarch, Ancaeus would find only the bodies of his fallen brothers. Giving in to his primal rage, Ancaeus would battle the Xenos alone. Imbued with the strength and vision of the great angel, Ancaeus would be grievously wounded by the foul creature. Yet his purity of purpose would remain true, and with his anointed blade, slay the Devourer. His duty to his chapter, Imperium, and battle brothers complete, Ancaeus would look upon his slain foe and be given the Emperor's peace. Another angel fallen as a martyr to his chapter and Gene Father's legacy.
You have brought ruin to perfection. You are false angels, and you shall fall!
Grace of the angel. In blood, I am born.
No, no, no! We are eternal. Kill us, and our rage shall follow you.
And we will be there to crush you. You know nothing of rage.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Ancaeus's deeds embody the nobility and grace of the Blood Angels, for within him he would demonstrate the fury and judgment of Sanguinius. And though his tale would end with his submission to the Black Rage, this fate would not be the last to befall the Sons of Baal, for in our next transmission we shall elucidate his stalwart yet troubled battle brother, Kazarion.